One of the recurring themes in this week's Torah portion, as it seems to be throughout the Torah itself, is the prohibition against cursing. Well, when I hear the word curse these days, I tend to picture those old movies, like The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, or that spine-tingling movie with Boris Karloff from 1932 called simply The Mummy. Or perhaps you may recall getting into trouble as a kid by using bad language. Cursing just wasn't allowed. And if you're like me, you probably justify it all by quoting that old adage, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm them." I mean, surely God can take a few derogatory slurs now and then. But taking God's name in vain isn't what the Torah is talking about. Now, not that it's okay to slander God's name, but that commandment refers to the use of God's name as a way of verifying the validity of something you know to be untrue. It's what the courts call perjury, or giving false testimony while under oath. Well, this week's Torah portion, and more, speaks more specifically to this idea of cursing God's name. The offense stipulated in this week's portion comes from the word chilel, and it means to kill. It also means to make hollow. It can also mean to create an empty space, including what we call the vacuum of outer space. There is a moment toward the end of the portion when we are instructed not to violate the laws of the sacrificial rites. This section of the Torah goes into considerable detail on how sacrifices are to be offered, instructions not only to the priests, but to the average person as well. All that is expected of anyone who steps up to make an offering to God. By not following these instructions, that person stands as one who has cursed, or as the current Jewish Publication Society translates, profaned God's divine name. Well, from this, the early rabbis developed the concept of Chilul Hashem and Kiddush Hashem. According to Rabbi Hertz of the Hertz Chumash, Chilul Hashem, the failure to sanctify God's name, refers to anyone's actions which brings dishonor, which desecrates not only God's name, but the reputation of the Jewish people as well. The example often used tells the story of several men in a boat out on a lake. For some unknown reason, one of the members begins to drill a hole under his seat. When the other members in the boat expressed concern, his response was, "This is my seat, and I can do anything I want." Well, the obvious answer is, no, you can't. We're all in this boat together. The moral is that one person's actions can bring destruction to others, especially to the Jewish people. But the story I like best tells of a rabbi long ago who asked some of his disciples to go out and purchase a camel for him. I'm glad we don't have to ride camels anymore. But this they did only to discover when they brought it back to the rabbi, that there was a precious gem hidden away in the camel's collar. When the rabbi discovered the gem, he asked if the seller knew about the precious stone. Well, the disciples, proud of the great bargain this hidden gem now reflected in the price of the camel, acknowledged that the seller must not have known. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sold them the collar and the camel at such a wonderful price. The rabbi was furious and demanded that they return the precious gem to the camel seller right away. Upon receiving the gemstone, the camel seller is said to have exclaimed, "Blessed is the God of Rabbi Shimon, and blessed is the God of Israel." The moral of the story? Because of the rabbi's actions, God's name was sanctified, as well as the name of the Jewish people, through the righteous actions of Rabbi Shimon. So, what does this have to do with us today in the 21st century? Once again, referring back to the meaning of the Hebrew word chilel, I would like to suggest the following. Through our actions, by the way we live our lives, we bring life and blessings to God's name. Imagine for a moment each of us has the ability to take the very essence of God and to hollow out that essence until it is an empty vacuum, a name without meaning. As I look at some of the violence in our world today, not just the wars and the street crime, but the incredible violence in some of our movies and our music, even the video games, I can't help but recall this idea. If God's divine name can become hollow, perhaps even an empty space, by the things that we do to one another, then the way we sanctify God's name is by doing those things which elevate others, which fills the empty void with life, with the divine sparks of God. So, as this Shabbat continues to unfold around us, let me suggest that we keep in mind one of the lessons from this week's Torah portion, that we always remember that our actions can either bring fullness to God's name and thereby to the world, or emptiness. It's our choice. So the next time you're in a situation where you might want to just give vent to your emotions by cursing up a storm, let me ask you to stop for just a moment and consider. Your words by themselves may not have an impact on God, but the actions associated with them often does. As we create an empty space where once there was God's name, we also create a vacuum where once humanity existed. It is often said, actions speak louder than words. May our words lead to actions which elevates the world around us, which fills the empty places. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos.